Thanks for tuning in to the Women's Vibrancy Code, a podcast dedicated to helping women move from exhausted to energized, balance their hormones, and feeling turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. I'm your host, Maraya Brown. I'm a Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, keynote speaker, and self-made entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my signature program, the Women's Vibrancy Code. So sit back, relax, and let's chat about your energy, hormones, libido, and embracing your feminine power. Oh, and you might want to have pen and paper to take some notes on some of these episodes. Hello, Women's Vibrancy Code podcast. Maraya Brown here, and I have Maresa Friedman with me today. This is a really fun conversation because she's an amazing woman in strategy and influence on the world. She's also a very dear, dear friend. So let me start out by reading her bio, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the conversation goes. It's always fun and organic. So Maresa Friedman is a TEDx and certified Google speaker, as well as a strategic consultant for high-level media and business people, guiding them through more effective engagement, cross-cultural messaging, and social media strategy. Maresa, pause on the bio. A certified Google speaker, how many people in the world can say that they're a certified Google speaker?
I think that at the time, there was like 7 or 8 of us that were brought in from various backgrounds. Of that group, 3 of us were women and the rest were men. So,
okay. So of 3 women on the globe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I might be a big nerd, right? So that's okay.
So in other words, this is a conversation worth listening to.
Yeah.
Particularly, who are we speaking to? Who is it that you really love speaking to?
You know, one of the things that I know is kind of like I have kind of the rule of thirds in all parts of my life. So it's kind of like a third of the people might be in a job right now where they're trying to be more scrappy or entrepreneurial in what they're trying to do, maybe with their career. Maybe they need to get a promotion, a raise, or enhance whatever their quality of life is in the workplace. A third of them are going to be super duper high performing entrepreneurs. These are people that have scaled their companies and now they're like, what do I do next? And then a third are kind of earlier stage in their journey that's like, you know, they've had some successes and they're like kind of at a plateau, right? They're kind of like, you know, I look at it kind of like a hummingbird trying to go through a glass plate because they see a flower inside the house and they just keep kind of like hitting the wall and they're like, if I can see it, why can't I get to it? So that's kind of where I think it all kind of falls.
I love that you use that analogy because I'm looking out my window and there's actually a hummingbird right now buzzing and it just landed on the branch right in front of me. So,
and as you would say, not me, as you would say, it's fine. I can't say it the way you do because it's not authentic in my personality.
Well, and what I also say is the hummingbird is my spirit animal, so it's always a message for me. Okay, moving on. So, because her bio is worth reading. So, as an adjunct faculty member at the University of San Diego, Friedman is in the top 1% of social sellers on LinkedIn, and has been a part of the Google Global Sales Enablement team. She's also worked with the Walmart Foundation, Wix.com, Google, the National Football League, in other words, the NFL. Are we ready for some football? And Tory Burch, among many others, to create impact strategies in marketing. The other thing I want to add that I know about Maresa is she has a big heart. She is like a mother hen for the people that she cares for. And she also does the do. You know, I think about people that will consume personal development stuff and go to retreats, and it kind of is like a lot of information that maybe doesn't stick. Whereas Maresa is one of those individuals that really applies. And she's always in humility doing her own work and on a tremendous journey. So I honor you, Maresa, as a friend and as a powerhouse woman in the world. I got
I'm
a
always
thumbs up for that.
uncomfortable. I'm always uncomfortable when people read my bio because it's just one of those things where you're just like, what's the face I'm supposed to have when someone's talking about me? I'm just like, it's embarrassing a
Right.
little bit.
Can this happen faster, please? Okay.
Can you read faster? No, it's fine.
Okay, some fun questions. Question number one, what's the biggest mistake you see people make?
I think the biggest mistake that I can say across all those segments of the thirds that I mentioned is that you have to be willing to wear all the hats in the beginning to know how to delegate and check out, at least spot check as you bring people in to help you. And that is really difficult for people to get their head, around, because part of the challenge is, great example, I'm not really good with the numbers in a particular way, right? Like I get frustrated when I have to look at pages and pages of spreadsheets and like the financials, and it's like, but I still need to like know how to read them. I still need to know how to produce them. I still need to know how to at a glance look at them. And so the mistake I think is in the quest to offload work to other people, what happens is business owner doesn't get a full sense of what's going on. And so what happens is they can go down this endless path of like trying to hire help, but because they don't know how to spot check the work and they don't know how to do that, they never end up like fully finishing or really being able to delegate that work. Because at a base level, not everyone's going to be a finance whiz, but you got to know how to do it, right? You got to know how to, for example, check and see if, as I learned the hard way, I had someone steal like $30,000 from me. I just wasn't checking closely. I delegated too much, right? And so, and I look at it like you win or you learn, right? It's a great kind of testament to that. And the problem is that in the quest to offload the work, the magic of being in a business that you create and start is part of it is this is something that you've created. This is like from scratch, right? And so to fully offboard the vision of what you want, you have to understand how to run all the tools and systems. And that's really hard because if you're not technical, or in my case, I'm also dyslexic. So numbers are hard, writing is hard, like all of this stuff is hard. But what I learned is no one was going to write better copy than me, even when I hire it out. And so that's just something that, it's really, really tough because we're fed a lot of narrative around, play to your strengths and outsource your weaknesses. However, outsource your weaknesses once you have an understanding of what's required in order to accomplish that. And that's really tough because people just don't want to do it. They just like, I want to do my thing and I want to be here and I don't want to do that. And it's like, but you gotta.
You're speaking to me right now because I have a live event that actually begins tomorrow, and I'd hired someone was going to help me with the ads and meta ads, and she ended up kind of dropping the ball and not really helping, and then I have this new hire who's trying to step in and do, and I'm like, I don't have anything here because I simply have no idea. I've never touched meta ads before. And in the meantime, Facebook will take my money with no questions asked. Yeah. And yet it's not useful spend of my money. And it's also not useful spend of my time and trust and to go, all right, lesson learned. Deep breath. Okay.
And it's like, you don't, here's the great thing about that though. You may not know the buttons and the things, but it's like, where is my backup systems, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I kind of jokingly say, it's like always have a freelancer from like an Upwork that you can go to that if you had to, they're your backup to the backup, right? Mm-hmm. They're the people that can like turn it on or turn it off and change out the images. So even if you don't know the mechanics, it's still the process of like getting to the right answer.
Yes.
Right. And that's what's tough. Because in crisis, we can freeze or we can get upset or and it's all just a distraction from like, there's a task that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. What is the best way to get that done? And again, I'm not saying everyone has to become an ads expert or like a CFO. What I am saying is have enough skills to be dangerous, right? Like have enough to know like, oh, okay, like cool, don't worry. I've got so-and-so over here. They're going to run it out for me, right? It's, and I think it's hard though, because specifically in my industry, I feel like there's such low trust because everyone says they can do everything and they can't. Unless, and I will say unless, like the way that I look at business comes from the fact that I ran operations of a software company for 5 years plus. And so that skill set of understanding the operations of a business and adding strategy and marketing on top of that is very powerful and dangerous, because I can speak to a business owner about, hey, like we can use this, which will help the business run smoother and do this and do this. So I'm always showing my value in more than 3 units of the business, right? And I think it's like everyone can't do everything, but people are really weird about saying what they can't do. And I've just learned I'm really good about communicating. I could do it, but I don't want to. Like I could do that, but it's not what I'm interested in, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then also you're very good at having a number of people in your back pocket where you can say, this is not my forte, but I know someone that is, and let me introduce you. And, the universe is abundant, and you're very quick to offer some introductions.
Well, and I think too, Maraya, it's like, and I hate using football examples, and women always roll their eyes, but I'm going to use a football example because it is relevant. And it is relevant, like, besides the fact that like the statistics show that people that play team sports have better leadership skills and capacity to work with team, right? There's the piece of, if you look at a football game and you look at an athlete, a really high performing athlete, let's look at at the time, Kobe Bryant, right? You've got a footwork coach who just worked with him on where he puts his feet. You've got your performance coach that's doing your athleticism. You've got your head coach, your assistant coaches. You've got all these people. That's basketball. Football, same thing.
I was going to say, wait, I knew that. I was going to be like,
yeah. And then when you go to football, then we move to football and we look at football players, they have special teams, which are the players that are only brought in for key moments. And most of the time, no one knows who the special teams players are unless they fail. So I want you to think about that. A special teams player, for the most part, is not known for the majority of their careers unless there's something on the line. But that's the backup to the backup. And again, they're going to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coaches. So what's funny to me is I meet people who go, well, I don't believe in coaching and I don't believe in that. I'm like, okay, so you're Jesus, you know everything, you're all knowing, you're omnipresent. It's like, no, like we can all learn from people that have a different point of observation from the task and the role that they've been assigned. Right. And that's like very powerful, whether you have the financial wherewithal to hire someone or whether you partner with other entrepreneurs to create your own group to have those observations. This is not a question of money and resources. It's a question of willingness to be challenged. Like, and that's tough too. Ooh, like I can feel when someone's going to see this or hear this, they're going to immediately just go, no, it's going to be scary. It is what it is.
Well, do you think the scariness is because we're very good at self-reliance and instead to depend on others is confronting?
I think depending on others is confronting. I think when we're really good at what we do, we have an inability sometimes. They call it willful blindness, which is like how we ignore the obvious at our own peril. But I would challenge that the obvious isn't always the obvious, right? Like we don't know, we some of us live in a vacuum. Right. So, I jokingly say my life changed the minute I moved to the suburbs in San Diego. Now, I had kind of lived in the suburbs as a kid, but I live in the suburbs, we're the land of gated communities and, like it's a whole world up here. And people that live in this bubble, when they leave the bubble, their experience of the world is coming from that experience of the bubble. And it's not really real. So anything that doesn't fit, right, into this excessive standard is seen sometimes as less than. And it's like, is it less than, or is it like you're leaving the bubble to go into a smaller business and they should hire more people. And it's like, they can barely make it as is. And you want this really beautiful matcha latte that's organic and all of that stuff. And it can't exist in our bubble because they can't afford the rent up here. So we're having to go, and so it's the lens of how we see the world is shaped by the community that we're in. And for anyone that's in business, you have to look at like, are my customers in my bubble or are they out of my bubble? And if they're out of the bubble, then you need to become a sociologist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're an anthropologist. You need to go out into the world and check everything you know and just watch and observe, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
and that's brutal. That's like brutal to hear. Like it just, and I used to bring a lot of my trauma and drama to work, and I have this analogy of the backpack, right? Like we all have our stuff, and it's like sometimes you gotta like put down the backpack and take out what you
Mm-hmm.
know, and be willing to be challenged and be willing to go like, oh, okay, like, and I kind of joke, it's like I don't want to be the smartest person. I would like to be the dumbest. I would like to be shocked, surprised, and confused. Like that's my favorite thing to be in a room, because that's where the growth comes.
I think I may be offered that to you at some point.
Yeah,
Um, and you are very good at, I mean, I think you can be observant in what an individual needs, and you're savvy with how it's presented. You're direct,
that's
but
learned.
it's you. I mean, I've been in receivership. I've observed you
Yeah,
giving feedback to others. I mean, we're in a mastermind together,
yeah.
and it's savvy. Okay, next question. Because you have worked with really some of the top 1% of achievers in the world and a variety of individuals,
Sure.
you know, of course, my world is in health and vitality and well-being. So I'm curious, what do you see as themes in the individuals that do a good job at taking care of their health, their foundational well-being, for the people that also have success and influence in the world? What are the things that work?
I think I would say it's different for men and women. And it's
Mm-hmm.
different, and it's different for a variety of reasons. One, we know that women are typically, just by the data, right? So I'm a data girl. 85% of women will be more proactive about health, wealth, business, whatever thing that they need to work on, right? They're going to study it before they need it. They're going to enroll before they need it. They're going to do all this. Whereas our male counterparts in business will only do things reactively to like death of a parent, divorce, birth of a child, right? Loss of a job, gain of a new position. So in that behavior alone, right, it's the drivers. I would also argue that, you know, until someone is willing to get off the hamster wheel, and the hamster wheel is, I would consider myself very much a creature of habit. So I am a person, unfortunately, that it's like sometimes it's like, okay, I'll do it kind of, but like, how bad does it have to hurt? Right. So for me, how bad does it have to hurt? Cancer a few times, a stroke. And even then, I wasn't fully committed. I was saying the words, but I wasn't living it. Like I was doing all these like red light and all these therapies, but I didn't change food. Right. I was doing this and this, but I wouldn't do that. It was the willingness to say, you know, it's not okay to go to bed tired and wake up tired. It's not okay to have this crash in the afternoon that's so aggressive that I can barely function. It's unfortunately American culture, and I find it really is American culture. Although in some of the Asian cultures you can see this as well, but what I've noticed with American culture is there's this obsession with numbers and weight. And for most of my life, as someone that grew up with an eating disorder that was pretty aggressive, like it was always this goal oriented number. If I was this number, everything would be okay. Well, I would argue, I've been sober going on almost 15 years. And, most people that make the transition into getting sober and choosing to stop drinking or doing drugs, right? Cocaine and all the fun stuff, right? Most people look worse when they get sober. However, at eating disorder, lots of cocaine and alcohol, I looked the best when I was the sickest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was like, I'm not going to obsess about a number anymore. I'm not going to, I had to reprogram my brain around what success in this area meant. And that's really hard because every ad that we are served in relation to health and vitality, if we look at them, they're all numbers gold. They're all oriented around this idea that, there's an end state, right? And it's not an end state. Once you accomplish whatever that goal is, which is just for me, waking up not feeling tired, right? Not crashing in the afternoon. You have to reprogram that it doesn't actually matter the number. That the success will come when we stop expecting it to look a certain way.
Yep.
And so health for me truly is wealth, but it was a new learning. It was a new behavior. And it was like, I've got to get off this hamster wheel because here's what I know. This is in some of the work that we did with Nike. It's like on average, a woman starts a diet 8 times a year. When they start this diet, so this is how it works in cycle, right? When they start this diet, now they have workout clothes at home. They have shoes. They have all of the things that they need. But no, what am I going to do? I'm going to go get some new running shoes or new workout shoes. I'm going to go to Lululemon or Fiore and get a new workout outfit. So the purchasing cycle that comes along with that decision can be about 10 different vendors. I'm going to try this new protein shake too, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So what happens is that 8 times a year that they're making that decision, there's a ton of purchasing that happens behind that decision.
Yeah.
And then what do? You're excited to do this thing on Monday, right? And then Monday comes and you're in a rush and you're in a hurry. You don't have time to make breakfast. And so you stop at Starbucks and you get a pastry and then you're like, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you don't, right? And that's the cycle that I was in probably for at least 10 years. Like, I'm going to really do it this time. I'm going to really do it this time. And, and it's like, but are you? No, you're not. It's a lie. Because to really do it meant looking at the numbers and really understanding what was going on in my body. And I had no interest in knowing that because that was too real, right? It's easy to say, oh, it's my thyroid, or, oh, this runs in my family, or all the little lies we say. Well, I've never been able to eat breakfast, whatever these lies are. And they're lies. They're white lies, but they're white lies we're telling to ourselves. Until someone is willing to address, like, I'm going to look at the data and the numbers, and I'm going to look at what I need to do, and I'm going to be really uncomfortable in this process, but we don't know how to orient to a goal that is not static. We have to orient our health to a goal that is dynamic because it is changing. And so that change requires a full, what I call body, mind, soul commitment and alignment. Mm-hmm. And if you're not all in, it's not going to work, because it means the willingness to say, and a friend of mine, I had him come on to Breakthrough. He's really really good friend of mine, but it's like, who do I have to be to get that? And it's like, I have to be a person that is willing not to drink coffee first thing in the morning when I wake up. I have to be a person that will put my shoes by the bed so that I can get up and walk dogs while my husband is gone this week at 5 a.m., right? And take them on the 3, 4, 5 mile walk that they need. And so to make that conscious choice to say, who do I have to be? It's kind of mindfuckery. And it's something that we're not used to doing. We're used to the old way of aspirationally saying, well, I just need to lose 10 pounds. And you probably meet with tons of women, if not thousands. I see some of the groups you run, right? Thousands of women. I just need to lose 10 pounds. I just need to lose. That's not what you need to do. It's like, throw that away, because that's the old way of being. It's like, I need to be okay with creating a new set of routines and habits and systems that maximize my body for the fullest potential.
And I also think redefining what our goal is, as you give the example of when you were thin and drinking and cocaine and an eating disorder, as a healthcare provider, I might have at that time, had I known you, seen you as thin, but I look at the quality of your skin and I look at the sparkle behind your eyes, and I don't see that as health. Or I look at your labs and your poop tests and your saliva tests. And so I'm over here trying to beat a different drum. But the reality is, you call a spade. It's not what the masses are looking for. There's this kind of addiction to the quick fix and the pipe dream without really taking steps. And then we looked at the data for you, and it shifted something for you.
Well, I mean, I will never forget the day. I took a picture because I like to memorialize moments where it's like full body breakdown, like when I got sober, that was a little bit of a traumatic experience, but full body breakdown, right? And then when I got, it's like, hey, like gluten isn't my friend, right? And what was I mourning the loss of? I was mourning the loss that now I've seen the data and I can't go backwards. I know why I'm not feeling good and I know what I need to change. But there was all of this, like, again, in my backpack, the cultural implications of being Pacific Islander and being Mexican American and knowing the foods that are offered to me at family events and knowing that, like, that is not going to work anymore. And knowing that there is the potential, and this is for anyone, whether you're Hispanic, I don't care where you are, whatever your subcultures are, the minute you have to make this change, it's like the loss of a life you knew to embrace something new, but that doesn't mean it's not hard. And I mean, I cried, like I just remember I was just full body tears and people were like, oh my God, dramatic. But it was like, it's like the Wizard of Oz moment. It's the moment that movie, I remember as a kid, turned from black and white to color, right? That magic. But it's like, once you've seen it in color, you don't want to watch black and white.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's like now it's here and I can't run away from it. And it's confronting. And this is where people don't want to be confronted, period. So anyone that is confronting you with this information is automatically, well, like, they're woo-woo, they're this, they're that. And it's like, but they're right. And it's like, what if you could be open-minded 10%? What if you could give yourself an F in open-mindedness? Okay. And that's like setting the bar really low. If we can set it to be like, I could be 10% open, not 100%. If I can be 10% open, there's this kind of window where you can learn and you don't need to do everything all at once. And I think that's what the reason people don't want to commit, or the reason someone doesn't want to get honest, is because it's like they think they have to do it all at once. And sustainable change is not going to happen all at once. There's no end state. It is a dynamic goal that keeps changing. And that is a mindfuck, because we're so taught that, like, here's the finish line. And when you're here, you're finished. And I would argue the minute you take your health seriously and vitality and wellness, you are never finished.
I also think that and I want to move on because I want to focus on your work too, but there's this piece around, if I see the data, I have to accept that I might have been part of the cause of the things that have happened in the past, and there's lost time. So that can feel heavy. And then also some people will go, oh my gosh, that means I actually have to change. And if I change, what's going to happen to the nature of my relationship and the people that are around me, and how are they going to see my change? It's the same thing in business. Okay.
It's the same thing in business, Maraya. Once we look at the data of someone's business, very similar to health, right? Once we point out this is not working and we need to make a change, it's the same process. Yeah. An entrepreneur is going to grieve the way that they built their business, and they're going to have to own up to the shit that they haven't done. And they're going to have to own that they've been operating their business in an unhealthy way. And it's the same shit. I don't care if it's health and vitality and wellness, or getting real with your fucking numbers and realizing, like, your spending is out of control. You're addicted to buying horses on the internet. Whatever the thing is.
Buying horses on the internet? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. That's a real scenario. Sorry, Tara. A friend of mine, I won't even go there. Liked to buy miniature horses, right? And so every time she got a deal, she would buy another horse. I'm like, you got to save some of that money, right? Like, we can't just keep buying horses on the internet. I don't know what you're doing. But it's, at the end of the day, like, it's the same process. Anytime we have to look at data that may not be flattering to us, it is exceptionally hard. And so in the business side, which is really where I shine with people, it's like, listen, like, I've got to come in and tell you your baby's ugly. It's really hard. It's really hard to look at someone and be like, hey, your baby's ugly. And by the way, we have all seen an ugly baby. And you know what we say when we see the baby? And, like, someone's like, so the baby's cute. You know, we go like, oh, that's a baby. Like we never like, and like someone just showed me a picture of like Paris Hilton's son, and I was like, wow, that's a baby, right?
I
Like
bet it smells really good.
you're like, oh, like, and so that the task is, and the hardest thing about what I do is having to be critical of exceptionally high performers who pride themselves on the thing that they do or the thing that they built, and being like, hey, this is built on sand, and so it collapsed at any minute, and so or it already has, and you're trying to build it again on sand, and so my job is to come in and like, let's talk foundation. Like,
okay, so let's talk,
that's tough.
Let's talk foundation and revenue streams. So
yeah,
just
sure.
some simple things that people can do to add revenue stream to their business without a whole lot of effort. Do you have any little tips and tricks up your sleeve?
Yeah. So the chances are, whatever business or industry you're in, there is someone that is aspiring to enter into that business or that industry. And the biggest mistake people think is, I've got my process, I've got my system, it's a secret, it works. And it's like, no, you can sell that secret under a totally different name, under a totally different brand. So I would argue, like the greatest example of this could be like, maybe someone wants to enter into a particular industry and they're like, whatever, like, I don't know what to do. I'll look at a business owner and I'll be like, hey, what are your processes? What are your systems? Like, maybe it's how you do sales calls. Maybe it's how you connect with people, whatever that is. Everyone probably already has 3 revenue points in their business that they haven't considered. And that's their process, that's the way they do things, or their system, or their methodology, right? So it might be how to connect with other vendors to create a good ecosystem that you can put people through. It could be, this is the best way to do sales calls that we do that we see has a success rate. Well, you can kind of create a sub-brand that's unrelated to your brand, document that process, and sell that as a downloadable item or like a thing. And so people get overly enamored with their processes, and it's like, that's an asset, right? And by the way, if you have an asset or a method or whatever, if you ever go to sell your business, that becomes more attractive, right? Because you have a methodology, you have a system, you have a process. Some businesses that I've helped either get acquired or we've sold, the most important piece of that transaction wasn't the customer base and the data, it was the process, right? So I worked with a tech company a long time ago, probably, like 8 years ago. And one of the things that this company's software did, what they figured out is and they were like a knowledge-based tool, so like a Wikipedia for a company. What they figured out is if somebody was looking for certain questions in the help information, they were able to say those 3 questions indicate that customer is going to leave, because they're trying to figure out how to get all their data off. They're trying to figure out how to back it up, which means they're going to go somewhere else. So what they did is they created kind of a widget around that. And then they went out and sold it to like Salesforce and these other big companies who had knowledge bases, which saved those companies, like, they were able to save customers, which is millions and millions of dollars, right? That's not sexy, that's documentation. So like the best part is like making money from that. It's not necessarily seen as sexy, but it's very sustainable. And I think like the unsexier it is, the more likely someone's going to buy it because they need it, right? Like if you had a tool that told you, oh, like these people are looking up these things, that means that they don't want to work with me anymore. You would buy that, right? Like people would be like, I'm buying that. So, and the other thing is too, is people often have communities and they're not actively mining those communities, right? They don't have a human who's in charge of looking for those opportunities. And, I kind of look at it like I typically pay my salespeople a lot of money. And the reason is I don't want to do it. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to say money. I think it's weird. I think it's like if I was going to go get plastic surgery and the plastic surgeon told me like, okay, it's going to be $43,000. Did you want to give me your credit card? I'd be like, get the hell out of here. Like, don't talk to me about money. Like, doctor does not touch a credit card. So part of it is knowing it's like I can have 100% of nothing, or I could have 70% of something. And so that's where I've really let go of, and in some cases with some of my sales partners that I use, we split stuff 50-50, and people go, why would you do that? And it's like, it's a $200,000 deal. I did nothing to earn it. I did nothing to acquire it. I did nothing to sell it. I'm just fulfilling on whatever was given to me. So again, like, revenue streams are there. It's your process, your system, it's your community. And most people are just focused on the wrong things, right? And they believe that, like, oh, it's this over here. And it's like, no, it's this, right? And so if you're listening to this and you're like, what do I have in my business? It's like, have you made a worksheet? Have you made an intake form? Have you made something that makes your business run easier? Because the chances are that form could work for other types of providers in your industry, right? So maybe you're not a nutritionist per se, Maraya, but if you were to go speak at a nutritionist convention, you're like, I have the best intake form that's ever lived. There's 10,000 people in that audience. And you're like, I'm selling it for $20, right? They don't have to think about it. They don't have to create it. They're buying it from someone and it works, and bam, that's money. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yep. And so it sounds like, I mean, you work with a lot of different types of clients on all different topics, but one option could be just having you come in to look at processes, look at strategy, and find, the cash that's hidden underneath the mattress that they had forgotten about.
Well, and that's why when we kind of did this math over the last 3.5 years, and we started going back to clients, some of the larger companies we were working with, and we realized that some of these saves, and we started adding it up, it was about 100, to be honest, it's higher than it was before, but it's like $160 million. And it's like, just by looking at better ways to add revenue. And this was not adding new products. This was not adding new services. And in some cases, it was just raising the price of products, right? It was just being like this myth of like, oh, I can't charge more. And it's like, okay, then here's the thing. If you charge more and you lose like X% of your client base, you're still making more money and doing less. It's like, and that's really hard math for people to get used to.
And even in today's market, so right now we're recording this, we're in September 2024. I'm watching more and more, at least in the service-based entrepreneur industry, I'm watching people reduce prices, offer up memberships, kind of appealing to a very different buying behavior in marketplace. Are you still saying increase prices?
I think if the quality of the experience matches the price point, then yes. Okay. And quality of experience is from the time someone gives you the money. What does that flow and process feel like? Because people, it's kind of like high-end shopping, right? Like you expect a certain level of service from a Walmart and a Target and a different from a Nordstrom, right? Yeah. Nordstrom hasn't lowered their price, right? Jeans are $200. It's $200, right? Walmart has jeans for $9.
When we were at the Nordstroms in New York City and we got that lip gloss, I still think about that lip gloss. That was okay. I'm staying focused.
No, but this is exactly what I'm saying is, technically people are always, I get a lot of pushback from a lot of my friends who are more reasonable. Like, I am very picky about certain things, but it's because that lip gloss, for example, it's like $60, $70 lip gloss, right? People go, $60, $70. That's dumb. You can get lip gloss from CVS. But talk to me about that lip gloss and why you liked it. Tell me about that experience, right?
The lid, that little click when it's fully closed, or the actual shape and feeling of the it's not a brush, but the spongy on, and it was also the memory and the experience of our fun time.
But it was also like, there's a little magnet, so when you close it, it stays, it doesn't fall out, right? And it feels good in your hand. And so all of these things go into the experience. And then you got it, and she put it in the bag, and she wrapped it for you, and it was just like, whoo, right? Yeah. So, and that's just lip gloss, right?
Totally.
So where I'm seeing the failure is if you have a higher end offer, higher end delivery is expected. And this is where people are going to be a little bit more nitpicky. Like, What's the onboarding experience like? Is where people go to get their information clean and organized? Is it easy to see? Are they getting nudges to make certain decisions? Are they getting reminders? And if they're not, then people are going to be disappointed and upset, and they're going to want their money back. And so in a service-based business, think of it this way. I sell air, right? Strategy is a very difficult thing to get your head around. But there were a lot of things that I do to make sure that people understand. I cannot tell you the strategy until I look at the data. You're scared to give me the data, and you want me to you want to pick my brain, go to hell with that. So what did I come up with? I came up with a strategy for people to pick my brain in a defined period of time in an offer. And someone said to me, who do you think you are charging X for that amount of time? And I'm like, because I know if I can point something out and someone makes that one change, it's going to change their entire business. And I've learned that as much as I want to be in community and I want to connect and I want to co-create with people, I'm very structured about my time. Time is the most important thing for me. And so if I'm going to give you an hour of my life, it's worth $1,000 and I make no apologies for it. And some people pay $5,000 for 90 minutes. And that way, they're getting what they need from me. Mm-hmm. But if they don't want to work with me full time and they don't want to be in retainer, that's the price that I've determined that it works for me to do a one-off. And if they don't want to do that, they don't have to. There's a ton of other people they can talk to. Yep. I can pretty much guarantee they're not going to be able to connect the dots in the way that I do, but that's okay. And I make absolutely no apologies for that. Yeah, and that's where I think, and again, it goes back to lip gloss.
Right. You can buy the Walmart lip gloss isn't the same. It's just not.
It doesn't feel the same. It doesn't have the same viscosity. It's not in the same packaging. They try, right? They'll put it in a plastic thing trying to make it as cute, but it's like, no, that's cool. It feels good. And again, so while some people are on this race to the bottom, which is totally fine, which is totally acceptable if you're going to do it in mass, right? If you want to be, kind of in this space of I have a colleague of mine, right? She runs that Women Helping Women entrepreneurial group, right? There's 800,000 women in this group. Of the percentage of people in that group, you can pay to advertise in that group. And she's made a beautiful living off of more of an offer in mass, but she's not having to micromanage any of that, right? And so her thing was, I'm going to go big and low price point because the expectations will be lower. People are not going to demand a ton of money out of $197 a month. They're not going to and what I find though is there's this really great meme, right? And it's like the $500 client, and it's like the $500 client's text message says, I'm really excited to partner and be in collaboration, and I can't wait to get on our onboarding call so we can discuss all the meaning and the value that we're going to provide and I'm going to get from this engagement and ROI, right? And then it's like the other side of that meme is like the $50,000 client being like, wire sent, thanks. And so that's kind of the space that I play in, right? Because it's just like, what the hell are you going to and again, I have no problem with whatever strategy people use, but I think people have to up their game in terms of service on a higher ticket offer, because people are, number one, they're not going to have the patience that they had 3 or 4 years ago, or at least before COVID, right? The expectations are higher. The second thing is you've got to think through your client journey. So whatever business you're in, you need to think of what is the journey like, right? And I know that's hard, but the more you can think of that journey and you can map out where the journey goes awry, the better you can fix that spot in the journey to make it a better experience or set the tone. So I always set the tone with people, and I always say the first 30 days is the worst 30 days. Because you're going to feel like nothing's happening. And this is when your anxiety is going to be at an all-time high. And this is when you're going to look at all these ads on the internet of, I'm going to, build you a funnel and give you the exact blueprint on how to blah, blah, blah in 30 days. And it's like, no, sustainability in any business. If you look at the greats in business, right? One, it grows month over month. Right? It didn't happen in 30 days, right? And so by setting that frame with them ahead of time, people are less likely to be anxious and nervous during that period of time. People are like, oh, okay. And then I can anchor back when we're 2 weeks in and they're giving me the, where are we at and where's the status? And I said, do you remember when I talked about the first 30 days with, oh yeah. So if we start there and we set that expectation, people will listen.
I was having this conversation this morning with my husband over tea. We got the kids to school and then had a moment. And it's like the tortoise and the hare. I feel like for the first 4 years of my business, it was the hare. It was a freight train. It grew so fast and it was fun and it was exciting and it was profitable, but it wasn't sustainable. And now it's like, okay, where is the slow and steady wins the race that plays the game now? I saw a Facebook post recently that was pretty much like, just keep doing the reps, stay in the game. And even as the market declines, watch what happens over the next 6 to 8 months. And those of us that just stay consistent and trustworthy and take the higher road, I imagine that's pretty much what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really great quote, and I want to say, I think it was by Blair Warren. I don't know if you've ever heard this quote, and I think it's really funny because now that I say it, this is kind of do you remember The Matrix? I felt like you remember.
Yeah.
Do you remember that movie?
The
right?
black cloak.
The black
Keanu
cloak.
Reeves, right? Yeah.
But yeah, you remember he like takes the pill. Which pill do you want to take?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to kind of red pill you, right? So I'm going to tell you, people will do anything for those that encourage their dreams, justify their failures, ally their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So, telling someone, for example, it's not your fault. What am I doing? I'm justifying the failure. It's not your fault, right? Like, it's not your fault. Social media leads us to believe that everything is happening in 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, right? And even just saying that out loud, people always kind of feel relieved when I say it. They're like, oh, but that particular quote, if I take that and I look at the industries around us, right? And we look at this political landscape that we're in and we look at all these things, it's like, why are people going towards one person or another? Well, they're just confirming their suspicions. I bet you felt like X, right? And you're like, I have felt that way, right? And
you see me.
You see me. And it's like, okay. But I think this is where, being on the spectrum, I'm very hyper aware when people are using particular language with me. But it is okay to tell someone it's not their fault because it's not. They're inundated with messages telling them how they should think, be. And so many people are like, this idea of depression and anxiety and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's real. And I don't think telling everyone that I have depression and anxiety is helpful. Because what it does is it allows people to live in a little bit of victimhood of whatever their affliction is. And so as someone that is, I've suffered from that my entire life. It hasn't stopped me. It's like, yeah, I have it. And it's not going to overrun or overrule my life, right? It just means that I process things different. It just means that when I'm feeling a low, I have to be hyper aware that it doesn't go too low, right?
And there's a nuance there. Because there's a big difference between someone saying, I am depressed versus what I heard you say is I have that. So I have hypertension versus I am depressed. Yeah, what I'm hearing is you say, I have depression at times. I have anxiety. It doesn't mean I am anxious. I am depressed. To be able to create that little bit of separation and not identification with it, but instead to compartmentalize that this is something that I have sometimes. And I keep taking steps. Maresa, I'm aware of time. I'm curious, do you have a hard stop in 2 minutes?
I could probably give you another 5. So
I'm just thinking because there was one more question that we had talked about that I think is it valuable if we can just do it swiftly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we're talking about profitability. We're talking about process. There's also this piece around in-person events versus online. Yes. And I feel pretty strongly that we live in a society where it's a non-negotiable. We have to remember how to be belly to belly, shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye with individuals. And I know that one of your expertise is helping people throw an event for $0.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious if you would just speak a little bit to that. And
Yeah.
for someone that's
Okay.
listening that's curious
Sure.
around diversifying income stream
Sure.
in a like in-person
Yeah.
event, what does that look like?
So there's a couple things when you throw a $0 event, and it's like, what is the goal of the $0 event? So the goal could be, I want to throw an event, I want to get some pictures, I want to test a message with an audience, any number of reasons why you'd want to do an event. Most people won't do them because it's like, oh, it's too expensive, da, da, da. So if you set the expectations right, and you throw an event, say from 10 to 11:30, there's no breakfast and there's no lunch, right? So that expense goes away. The second thing you look at is, where am I going to throw this event? And so what a lot of people don't know, at least in the United States, actually applies in Canada and other countries too, but most of the time you can throw a free event with your local library or university. So what you need to do is find, like, a great example would be like Las Vegas, for example. Their libraries are just so big. Same thing with Utah, their amphitheaters, right? And you can rent those out as long as the event is free and you just need a microphone, right? You just sign up, you throw the free event. So here's something really cool about that. One, if it's a free event, the library or the city entity will send out an email blast to anyone that has a library card, right? And people go, oh, well, like the library, who goes there? A lot of people, like a lot. And it would surprise you to know, like what. But it's also, they're promoting it, so you can take that piece of content and say, hey, like, during this free event here. Second thing that you'll do is you'll go to your local college. You can go to a community college or a four-year university and go try and find the photography department, visual arts department. Basically, some of these people are just learning how to take pictures for the first time or whatever, and you just say, hey, I'm hosting an event. Love to get some photos in exchange for a referral and testimonial, and it's a win-win. You get photo credit, you get this, you get that. It's a win-win for both. So then that covers some photography, right? Then you get some of those photos. And also you have a cell phone. It's 2024. Everyone has a cell phone, so you can get a tripod and record yourself. This is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And even just that, right? It's like, oh, like, I didn't think about that. The other thing you can do is go, typically the Art Institute, for example, the Art Institutes across the country has an event management program. So you can actually work with the class, right, to help design your event strategy. And again, so again, it's like there's resources all around us, but when we're in tunnel vision and we don't see the potential. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I suggest that people do a free event is, one, it gives you your talk tracks. Two, you get to see how people are responding to what you're saying in real time. Are they leaning in? Are they confused? And then you have that back and forth with them to be like, oh, okay, like, the reason I'm doing this event is I really want to understand if what I'm doing, teaching, is relevant. So I did the same thing when I first started. I call the library the original co-working space, right? And I did my event in a conference room that was made for 10, and I had 20 people show up. And, I noticed, the one thing someone said is, it was like, it was too much information for 90 minutes. We couldn't stop writing, right? And I was like, well, that's good, right? The second thing was getting that direct feedback and response for people I knew I was on to something, right? And the third thing was, I just asked, hey, what would you pay for this information? And so I built my first offer around that information, right? And what's magical about that is all it took was just the time, effort, and energy to research the libraries, do outreach to the universities to see. And even let's take this event and apply it to marketing strategy. If you don't have a ton of budget for that, you can go to the university, the business school, the marketing class, ask if they'll take on your business as a project. Most likely the professor will mentor those students throughout that project, but you have 30 bodies working at creating something for you if you don't have the resources. So it's never a matter of money and resources. It's like time or money, right? You want to skip the line, you have to pay more money. But if you're patient and willing to kind of lean into this process, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. And, like I said, Las Vegas has some of the best libraries that I've ever seen, right? They're huge. Just by the same thing with Utah, right? Things are just bigger there than they should be because they have more land and it's cheaper, right? But to throw that event where you can kind of get this litmus test for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish for no money, people go, oh, that was simple. And it's like, it really is. And that's my gift. I'm going to take something that seems really hard. I'm going to make it really easy to understand. On the offset, sometimes I have simple things and people want me to make it harder. So I can do both directions. But I also think the gift is lifting someone from that place of I can't into like, oh, wow, that's totally possible and I can totally do that. Right?
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that's kind of in whatever it is that we do, whether we're doctors, lawyers, attorneys, health providers. It's the idea of getting someone to go from I can't to like, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can. Oh, yeah, I can do that. And now, right, when people listen to this, they're going to go, oh my gosh, we know someone that, recently wrote a book. It was like, how do we get that book out? Okay, well, let's figure out where can we put them, right? What can we do? And again, if we boil it down to the simplest, it is whatever you want, whatever the thing is you want, more health, more love, more revenue in your business, more people to whatever it is. Are you willing to do the things required to get what you want? And the reality is most people are not willing. Most people will sit in excuse and status quo and fundamentally live in this like, oh, what's happening to me? I can't. It's like, no, it's like there's choice. And the minute we can honor our choices, good choices and bad choices. I've made terrible choices. Like the way I learned about coaching was investing with a terrible coach, right? Like I was like, oh, that sucked, right? And it was like, but did the coach suck or did I suck because I didn't know what to ask before I signed the contract? And it was me. And I could have looked at that as like, I could be really mad at that person. Or I could go, I have to own that I made a shitty choice and I didn't ask the right questions and I didn't ask these things. And so that's on me, right? Yep. You win or you learn, you win or you learn. And if you go through it going, I win or I learn, I win or I learn, you're going to be fine. It's like,
so good. I think we could talk for hours. How do you want, if somebody's listening and wants to reach out to you, wants to explore the possibility of receiving more, where would they go?
So I think that, I used to send people to LinkedIn and now it's like, just come to my Instagram. It's Maresa SD, MARESASD. And the reason I send people there is you get a pretty good sampling of my personality and who I am in the world. And if you're totally repelled by the content, then you'll rethink talking to me. And if you're going to laugh at the insanity of all the things that I do, then you'll lean in and you'll DM. And that, I think, in the idea of authentic leadership, authentic power, just being authentically me, I'd rather that someone know that I am espresso, no milk, no sugar, than expect me to kind of hold their hand and patiently, lovingly. So it's like, no, I don't have time for that. I have people that I know that are phenomenal at that, and I will refer them. And in the process of referring them, I will probably make passive income on that because maybe that client's not a fit for me, right? So I'm always thinking with intent, and I invite people to come to Instagram and watch the madness and experience kind of, someone that is just fully like, this is just what it is. Like, take it or don't, right?
I love your madness. And I love you. All right. Thanks for everyone listening.
Thanks.
And you will, in the podcast, obviously, all those details will be in the show notes. Take a peek, find her Instagram. And for those of you in Facebook, you're welcome to comment down below. I'll make sure to tag her. Maresa, honor your time, honor you, and honor all the ways that you support people around the world.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.